really, really serious days, there's no doubt about it. And the high number of marriages that end in divorce is very sobering. And I mean, I don't think there would be any one of us that isn't personally impacted by this in some way, shape or form, and the devastation and the pain and the heartache that comes with that. But I think we are both big proponents of marriage, but I want to put a qualifier around that. For me, I think what I would define as a godly marriage is two people that marry on purpose, for purpose. And so again, you know, like I said, I'm not saying we're not the experts. We didn't go to any major course, but we're still married after 25 years. We still really love each other and we love doing life together. But I think with us, we didn't sort of, it wasn't just a bunch of warm fuzzies. We were both a little bit older. We were 30 when we married. I was 35 when I had my first child, 40 when I had Sophia. And the fact is that I think some of that gives you a little bit of maturity, not necessarily, but it can give you some wisdom and some maturity. But for us, neither of us was going to get married just, I'm not minimizing the importance of it, but I am saying that this reason alone wouldn't have been enough for us. Just because like we love each other, or you know, we were younger once, like you're hot or you're hot, like that. The hotness wasn't a big enough factor. Just like I think you're awesome wasn't a big enough factor. It had to be tied to God-given purpose and God-given destiny. And so I would say from the outset, we always had a better chance of it making it because it was tied around Jesus and around the call of God and the purpose of God. And I always say, I'll just put my coffee down for a sec. I always say that for us, not much has changed, because before we met, I was running 1,000,000 miles an hour towards the goal. His name is Jesus. Nick was running 1,000,000 miles an hour towards the goal, Jesus. As we were both running towards our goal, Jesus, our paths intersected. And we didn't stop running towards Jesus and start looking in at each other. We kept doing what we always did, except we did it together. The two became one flesh and we ran towards Jesus together. And so a lot of things that I see in some cases become real big issues have just not been an issue for us, because Jesus has always been our goal. Jesus has always been our purpose. And the call of God, the purpose of God, the promise of God has always been what we have been going towards. So things that may have been issues just have never been issues. Like we've never, ever been jealous of each other's gifts or compared one another's talents. We have always done what is best for the cause. What is going to further the mission? How are we going to advance the cause of Christ? And so when Jesus is first, and when Jesus is the goal, and when Jesus is the foundation, I think you've got a huger chance of the whole thing working together. Because then the dynamics of the two becoming one flesh, which are not easy, it's easier to do when you're doing it ultimately for Jesus more than you are for another person. You are more willing to die to self when ultimately it's for Jesus. You are more willing to crucify your flesh when it's ultimately for Jesus. You are willing to take up your cross and follow him when ultimately it is for Jesus. When it becomes just about another human being, I think that's when a whole lot of the disappointment and the discouragement and the disillusionment can actually settle in. I understand how it happens. And I certainly know this isn't everyone's story. So I'm always tender. I'm always a little bit sensitive when I'm talking about this, but this is our story. I also don't want to be apologetic for how it has been for us. I know we largely have not had major complex issues in our marriage. I had a heck of a lot more before we ever got married. So maybe I just got rid of some of my crap then. But you know, the fact is that we came together and we'd had major conversations before we got married. I mean, we went where very few couples dare to go before we ever got to the altar. That is the truth. We had major counseling, major sessions. We put everything out on the table. So it's not that we got married and found a whole lot of surprises. I pretty much had aired most of my dirty laundry and vice versa before we got married. And so we made a conscious decision. We're stepping into this knowing that there's a lot of stuff we're going to have to work through, especially because of my broken past. That is the major reason. And so we just didn't renege on that. We just continued to go on it. And I don't know what what you could add to it, because sometimes we feel like we have to make up something complicated, don't we?
Yeah. I think the conversation that you kind of referenced earlier on, where Chris looked at me one day and said, okay, you're cute, the sex will be fun, but that's not enough. So I'm doing more single, this is Chris speaking, I'm doing more single than most married people I know, so why should I take a chance on you? From the very beginning, it's all been about reaching people, it's all been about the cause, it's been about the kingdom, and that's just made it a lot simpler, because it's not really about us most of the time.
And so therefore, you know, I don't know that you learn more, or you have more sanctification than you do in a marriage, or the opportunity to become more Christ-like, because you do have to die to yourself. And so, but when Jesus is the purpose of it all, I feel that it is easier to be able to do those sorts of things. And then some things that could be a deal actually don't become a deal, because it's like, really, is that worth it? And you just roll your eyes and keep going. And I think we've learned to keep very short accounts, to get over stuff. You know, I see some stuff between some couples and I think, my gosh, they haven't spoken to each other for 3 weeks over that. We've forgotten that we even said it. So I think it's just healthy to just go, how about you just don't get offended that quickly?